We have a problem in this country with policing and how our laws are upheld. The police are not doing the job we need them to do. They are not serving and protecting, they are intimidating and killing. If you've been able to look outside of your house over the last month, you've seen millions of people marching and protesting the rampant police brutality in every corner of America. But let's be honest, people have been protesting brutality by the police since the 1960s. The difference right now is social media. Social media is shining a light on the police response to the anti-police brutality marches, which overwhelmingly has been more police brutality. But social media is a problem too. Social media moves so fast, and ideas just whip by, held together with hashtags and slogans. But a hashtag is not the whole message. There's a hashtag out there in the world right now, which has people all confused. There is a lot of mis and disinformation about what defund the police actually means. We are not saying that we want to completely get rid of law enforcement. We acknowledge that the police, as they operate right now, are being asked to handle situations that are wildly outside of their training and abilities. The police are a tool, and we have to use the right tool for the job. This is the police. We are acknowledging that the police, as they operate right now, are over-militarized in their training and equipment, completely protected from any criticism by a lobbying group / cult masquerading as a labor union, and are deeply, deeply racist. Remember, the police, as they operate right now, were originally established as a gang, roaming the United States South to capture escaped black slaves and return them to their owners. This is the police. You know the adage that when you're a hammer, every problem looks like a nail? Well, I'm a chef. I think in food. I access the world through food. When you're a meat mallet, every problem looks like it needs to be tenderized. The police are not the right tool for every job. When we say defund the police, we're not advocating for abolishing the police completely. We're saying that there are situations that can be resolved without involving the police. This already works. Let me show you. This fella's house is on fire. He called 911. The 911 dispatcher sent the fire department. This fella's house is partially burned, and some of his possessions have been destroyed. But he's alive. He's able to rebuild. He will be able to buy new stuff. This fella's house is on fire. He calls 911. 911 dispatches the police. They respond the only way they know how. This lady is pregnant. She's going to have a baby. She calls 911. Dispatcher sends out an ambulance. She has her baby. This lady is pregnant. She calls 911. 911 sends out the police. They react the only way they know how. Let's say this is my restaurant. You go out to eat. You get food poisoning. You call the health inspector. Health inspector comes out and inspects my kitchen. Maybe they fine us. Maybe they help us with our sanitation practices. Let's say this is my restaurant. You go out to eat. You get sick. You call the police. The police respond the only way they know how. Seems silly, right? Call the police when your house is on fire, when you're in labor, when you get sick. And that's what we're saying. The other public service departments work. They have very narrow fields of responsibility, and they operate within those fields. The police are asked to respond to everything, and it does not have to be that way. This mushroom is drunk. He fell asleep in his car in a Wendy's parking lot. The Wendy's calls a social worker and an addiction specialist. The alcoholic mushroom gets the help he needs and treatment for the disease that he has. As an alcoholic, let me say, what I needed was help. What I got was a trip to jail. Help would have been a lot better for me. This mushroom is drunk. He fell asleep in his car in a Wendy's parking lot. The Wendy's calls the police. The police respond the only way they know how. This fella just stole chips and pop from a convenience store. I am absolutely not saying that only brown eggs rob convenience stores. These are all of the eggs I have in my house right now. It's a fucking metaphor. This fella just stole chips and pop from a convenience store. This shell is poverty. How do we peel away this shell of poverty so that this fella doesn't have to rob this convenience store? Invest in public education so that this fella can get a good job. Invest in public transit so that this fella can get to his good job. Improve infrastructure in impoverished neighborhoods so this fella's local grocery store isn't a convenience store. I am also absolutely not saying that deep down all eggs want to be white. It's still a fucking metaphor. We do not know what led to this fella deciding to rob a convenience store for chips and pop. We do know what happens when the convenience store owner calls the police. When we say defund the police, we do not mean abolish the police. What we mean is divert their budgets into social programs and policies that help instead of kill. Take the police's budget for military hardware and weapons and direct that into additional treatment, mental health resources, counselors, intervention specialists, education. We have asked the police to fix too many of our problems, and we've only given them this with which to fix them. There is another way. Compassionate law enforcement. Right there. If the neighbors are fighting drunk out on the lawn, you call 911 and the dispatcher sends out a marriage counselor and an addiction specialist. Everyone lives. If a kid is tagging a wall in an alley, you call 911 and the dispatcher sends out a youth services administrator and an educator. Everyone lives. If the bank is being robbed, you call 911 and the dispatcher sends out the police, armed with non-lethal weapons and de-escalation training. Everyone lives. You see a black kid selling bottles of water at an intersection and you call 911 and the dispatcher tells you to mind your fucking business. Everyone lives. When we say defund the police, we mean take our tax money that's being dropped into an ever-widening hole of failed training, failed policies, and put that money into helping people. When we say defund the police, we do not mean use our tax money to buy tanks and tear gas for the police. Use our tax money to put librarians, nurses, and counselors in every public school. When we say defund the police, we're saying it is not okay for our tax money to go into a fund that pays out millions of dollars in police brutality settlements every year. When we say defund the police, we do not mean abolish the police. Let the police handle the violent crimes, and only the violent crimes, in a compassionate, non-lethal way, and divert our tax money into programs, policies, and professionals who will help people, not kill people. That's what defund the police means. It means refund, fund once again, society.